best-selling author, animal communicator, leader in animal communication, scientist in the field of ecology and behavior of oceanic mammals, Cara Gubbins. Welcome, Cara, in the Whispers of the Soul.
Oh, thank you, Sharka. I'm so happy to be here.
9 books. Animal Oracle Card Deck, Chakra Awareness, educational videos about animal communication, teaching animal communication in several presence and online programs, hosting summits, not mentioning family. Tell me, Cara, what is your time management secret? And do animals themselves play a role in how you organize your time and energy?
Oh my gosh, that's not a question I did not expect. Super fun. I have always said that yes, we can do it all, but we can't do it all at the same time. And so for me, it's like really understanding that, that there are choices that have to be made.
Mhm.
And when my kids were young, they were my primary choice. They were my highest priority, and I fit what other stuff I wanted to do into the time when I wasn't with them. Um, so I think that in a lot of ways, it's really about time management is about getting clear on what matters to you
Mhm.
and and really living those priorities. I have a friend who in his wallet, he used to literally have a little card that had his priorities, like
Wow.
my health, my family, my job, my fitness or whatever. I can't remember what they all were, but he's like, where, if he's offered something, where does this fit on my priorities? He'd pull out the list and go, no, that's at the bottom. That's going to take time away from my health or my family. So I'm going to say no to that opportunity. And
Mhm.
I'm not quite that formalized, but I feel like, now that my kids are older, I have a lot more time freedom and I get to choose where I spend that time. And so for me, the priority is really embodying my mission of bringing as much connection between people and animals that I
Mhm.
can do. Some days that's teaching a class, some days that's writing a book. But for me, taking care of myself is the most important thing because if I'm not healthy, nothing else can happen. And then, really prioritizing my time for what feels the most important to me
Mhm.
on my own internal list.
Mhm. And are animals any help or inspiration how to organize your time and energy?
So in a very practical way, my dogs help me really organize my time because we have our daily routine and I want to honor them and my agreements with them. So that
Mhm.
has to happen every day, the daily walks. Sometimes it's two per day, sometimes it's one long day. But
Mhm.
that also is taking care of me because taking care
Mhm.
of them is taking care of myself. And every month, I have a different animal teacher in my program, the Animal Wisdom Circle. And so
Mhm.
I'm always asking them, what do I need to know now to be
Mhm.
my best self? And sometimes it's take more time for yourself. Sometimes it's go slower, So I'm very much refining, I have the big pattern of my life, but I'm refining it every month by looking to the animals for guidance and
Mhm.
clarity and specific action steps that I can take to make my life better.
And actually, this is something that we all can do. We can all ask the animals for help, inspiration, um, some advice, maybe.
We can all do it, whether we do it directly through intuitive animal communication or just watching an animal in its natural habitat. I live in the mountains, and so
Mhm.
I see a lot of birds and bears and squirrels and chipmunks, and And sometimes I get my lessons from watching how they live their lives.
Mhm.
And so, or if, for me, if something really unique happens that really catches my eye, then I pay more attention.
Mhm.
So, like right now, we have a squirrel in our backyard that comes up onto our deck every day. And I watch what she does, and it's a daily occurrence. But if I didn't see her, then I would pay attention, right? So it's something unusual. Or if instead of her coming up on my deck, a porcupine came up on my deck, I'd be like, oh, here's an opportunity for me to learn from the porcupine about whatever's
Mhm.
going on in my life. So I really look at what's happening in the world around me as an opportunity for me to use that as a springboard to look inside at what's going on with me.
Mhm.
I don't know if that made sense at all.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I do the same. I do the same. That I observe environment, and also when something hits my eye or catches my attention, I do the same, and I ask, "Oh, okay, what should I learn, or what is saying it to me?" So absolutely, it makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think, or why do you think it is important or even necessary for humans to truly understand animals?
Because we are animals, first of all. I think we forget that. We are animals. We are so in love with our brains for whatever reason and what they can do and how they can manipulate the world and, all these things that we forget who we are.
Mhm.
And spending any time with an animal brings us back into kind of
Mhm.
more of our truth of who we are as also an animal species. But I also really believe that we've lost our sense of partnership with the natural world.
Mhm.
And I think that that comes from, all of our collective history of humanity of starting to really focus on what we can do, what our brains are doing. Like we kind of got out of balance collectively. And
Mhm.
so I think that we can return to our more natural state by connecting with animals more. But also, I think we can learn a lot about living in harmony with nature
Mhm.
by being with animals. And so, I mean, that's kind of the big picture, but there's layers and layers and layers. And so we can get more and more and more specific with why it's important for us as a species, as a culture, as a community, as an individual, right? So there's really important pieces at each step. So collectively for humanity, we're wrecking our planet. Other animals don't wreck planets. We can learn from them about that. And I think about like my community, there's a lot of ecological restoration going on around me. Like really a lot of places are creating wildlife crossings so that animals have their natural ranges, even if somebody's built a freeway, through their natural migration route, we're understanding that our health depends on the health of our planet and the nature that creates that health. And so we're learning that we live better lives not at the expense of somebody else, but because when we benefit, we all win. It's a synergistic thing. So, then what we've already talked about is that individual piece, right? Like that fulfillment, that connection, that communion that we can
Mhm.
have with another being through our intuitive communication conversations is in itself so magical and fulfilling. And there's a lot of information that we can gather from that. I think of one of my good friends had his dog die unexpectedly. And he asked me to communicate with her, I don't know, like within 24 hours of her passing. And she had a message for each person in her family. And he was so struck by how clearly this dog saw each individual in their family
Mm-hmm.
and how much love she had for each individual in their family. And I didn't know the rest of his family. I only knew him. So, it was super clear that it was coming from
Mm-hmm.
his dog. But the depth of our relationship, the depth of our love
Mm-hmm.
sometimes gets overlooked if we don't go looking for it. Right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But still, there are quite a few people who think that animal communication is either some esoteric nonsense or mumbo jumbo or maybe a skill for a couple of chosen. Could you describe what animal communication is? Because it has nothing to do with esoteric or mumbo jumbo. It's very earthy, skill. So could you describe how you
Yeah.
perceive animal communication?
Well, I think that it's really important to understand paradigms. So the and in science, there's like this beautiful history of paradigm shifts where we go from thinking the world is flat, that's a paradigm, until we have evidence that it's not, and we have a paradigm shift to now understanding that the world is round. And I think that intuitive animal communication is in the process of that paradigm shift happening for humanity, where we have a paradigm of if I can't see it or touch it, it doesn't really exist. And if it's not something that I can intellectually comprehend, then it doesn't exist. And you're crazy if you think it does. So I think that the context that we are approaching animal communication in is very, very important. And I think that many, many people, hundreds and thousands of people, have made that paradigm shift already. It just hasn't made that tipping point to everybody yet. But it will, it will. Um, and it is incredible to me, especially that the world of science doesn't understand that we're hardwired for intuition. Otherwise, our species wouldn't still be here. Intuition is what helps us understand, like when we walk into a room and go, something's wrong here,
Yeah.
right? Or I feel wonderful here. That's our intuition. And
Mhm.
so I think of intuitive animal communication as we are floating in a sea of energy, and energy has information.
Mhm.
And some of us realize that we have all these little antennae to gather information from that energy that we're swimming in, and some of us don't. And so intuitive animal communication is really about tapping into that natural exchange of energy between us and our environment, us and another person, us and an animal, us and nature, whatever it is, and using our intuitive receivers. So,
Mhm.
our intuitive vision, our intuitive hearing, I call it our inner senses,
Mhm.
right? It's more subtle than what I can see with my open eyes, but I still have inner vision if I close my eyes, right? And I can sense that energy that's coming into my inner vision. And so using intuitive animal communication is using our inner senses, which most of us are not trained in and don't even know that we have. And so it feels very confusing. It feels like it's not real to a lot of people. But what happens when you start tuning into those inner senses and listening to them or following what you see or feel or hear or whatever, um, is you start to understand that you're part of nature. And that's part of the big paradigm shift that our species needs is to understand that we're always connected. We're not always aware of it, but we're always connected. So intuitive animal communicators have learned how to access this natural ability that we all have and get better at using it, just like if I go take a lesson in basketball, I get better at shooting baskets.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. I don't, say that I'm a basketball player, but I can throw a ball into a basket, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And before we started, we were talking about it's like learning new language. It doesn't matter if it's Spanish, German, English, Czech, it doesn't matter. But the animal communication, it's like learning new language and it can give us the personality. Could you talk about this little bit?
Yeah, so I love that you and I both love languages. And I think we love them for the same reasons, because I just love understanding other people, other beings, right? What's your perspective? Who are you? And language, I feel like each language that we have on the planet or that we are able to learn brings with it the culture that it evolved in. So, for instance, there's cultures in the northern hemisphere where they have 20 words for snow. And
Mm,
and I have one, maybe two. I have snow, I have sleet, and then I have like hard snow, soft snow. Like
yeah.
I don't have specific words for all these different ways that snow can show up. But this culture, in their language, they've developed many specific words for different kinds of snow. And that always fascinated me that,
Yeah.
and I had friends who like couples who both spoke two or three languages, and I would listen to them talk, and they would plug in words from different languages to express really specifically what they wanted to say. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. And you shared with me that you really see learning another language as bringing out another personality or a part of your personality, right? And I was like, yes, I never thought of it that way, but it's so true. It's so awesome.
Mhm.
So, learning intuitive animal communication is a lot like learning a foreign language. And in a lot of ways, it's harder because there's not so much of a like, I learned this word and I know what that means, and those two go
Mhm.
together. It's learning this kind of non-specific how your receiver works. It's more about learning yourself, really. But it gives us this window into a world of another perspective. And so every animal that I communicate with has its own personality, its own way of being in the world, its own way of perceiving the world. And when I can communicate intuitively with that animal, that expands me. So now I understand black bear nature a little more because I had a conversation with a black bear. And so our overlap, that aspect of me that matches that, gets expressed in me. And so my personality, my who I am, expands with every animal to include all these different perspectives. And I find that endlessly fascinating and
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Me too. And also, once we learn how to communicate with animals, we start understand them and why they do what they do. Uh, if they have non-wanted behavior or if they do that we don't like, once we learn animal communication, we start understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful point that you're making is, until we talk to somebody, there's a saying in the United States, you have to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes to understand them. And what you're saying is we have to communicate with them to understand them.
Mhm.
And I think that's exactly right. We may understand, like the animals that share our homes and our families, our family members, because we're with them so much. But there are so many surprises when we communicate with them using intuitive animal communication that expands our understanding of who they are. Just like my friend Greg, when his dog Glory passed away, he was like, wow, I had no idea that she had all of that understanding of who we were.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at animals, each of the animals seems to bring its own lesson if we are opened. Dolphins about joy and playfulness, lion about the heart and true alignment. From your perspective, from your experience, is there one core lesson that all animals share with us?
Wow, I love these questions. You're making me think. This is so fun. I think if I had to sum up, so I've probably had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of, I don't know, tens of thousands of animal communication conversations
Mhm.
with hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of species. And to me, if I had to say there's one lesson from animal kind for humanity, it would be yourself.
Mhm.
So many animals tell me that what they love about being who they are is how uniquely they are matched to their life and their environment. And so, no, I've never met an animal who was trying to be anything other than who they were. And it's such a great lesson for us because, we get so in our heads and we try to be something or we strive for this or we want to fit in with that. And instead of embracing like, here I am, this is me, we think that there's something wrong or something more or better somewhere else. And animals, if there's one lesson that we could learn from them, I think that would be it. Be yourself. Love who you are. Express yourself fully. Be you.
Yeah, and I believe that animals, or what I observed through the time I'm doing animal communication, is that once we start communicate with animals, they will lead us to our true path, on the path that we are supposed to walk. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the animal communication, because I had students who start doing music and others start working with stones. What is your experience?
I love that idea. And I think that the more that we communicate and connect with animals, the more we're automatically connected with truth because they're living that truth, right? They're living it's great to be me. I'm just going to be myself. And in a sense, when we tap into that by connecting with them energetically and intuitively, we get that experience of it's okay to be me. So
Mhm.
how can I be more me? Well, maybe I'm actually a painter and I never gave myself permission to paint. So I think that not that animals are, have all this wisdom, like they live on this high mountaintop and they know more than we do and they're better than us. I don't believe that at
Oh,
all. But I believe that by connecting with them, it returns us home to ourselves. And when we embrace being ourselves and understanding that we're all connected, then we get to take whatever our next step is. And I think animals, just so easily and so naturally take us home to who we are
yeah.
just by being with them. I'm thinking of like horse therapy. A lot of people do horse therapy and the horses mirror, where you're uptight and where you're tense and sometimes it takes a while for people
Yeah.
to get the message. It's not like this instantaneous thing, but it's another way because by being with an animal like a horse, they have a lot of energy, a big, you know, physical presence and a big bundle of energy and a big truth. And so it's like you're stepping into this bubble of truth that this horse is holding energetically. And you get to get rid of all the things about you that aren't truth.
Hmm.
And I think intuitive animal communication opens us up in the same way. It might not be a one-time thing, and suddenly we're like, oh, I know who I am, and here I go.
Yes.
It may be like over time, we start to clear away all of the veils of illusion that we have accumulated over our lifetimes of trying to be somebody else or trying to fit in here, or I should do this, or I should be that. And that starts to dissolve. And I think, intuitive animal communication is a doorway to that type of healing that humanity needs. And I think that's why, you've brought up examples of people who they don't all become famous animal communicators. They get to go and be themselves. And that's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves and that we can give the planet is to be who we came here to be.
Yes. And also animals, they teach us to be present because they are always present. They are always in the present moment.
They are. I worry, for me, I get a little uncomfortable with always and because we all know a traumatized animal,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes.
So I'm like, yeah, that's our natural state. That's their natural state. But we all share this, similar nervous systems. We all share that bad things can happen to us that we have to overcome, that we have to heal. And
Mhm.
so, I wouldn't look at, an animal who has been traumatized in some way
Mhm.
and go, oh, well, they know everything and they're so in touch with themselves, and I just have to go and, step into their truth. No, they're healing themselves, right? So I tend to shy away from like big generalities of animals are always who they are.
Mhm.
Sometimes they also need some help as well.
Yes, that's absolutely true. Cara, is there a question that everyone who loves animals should be asking?
Who are you?
What do you
How do
mean?
you see the world? I think we should be asking animals, who are you?
Oh, okay.
Is that what you meant? And a question for animals?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Who are you? I really think, I don't know if there's an author in the US, Stephen Covey, who wrote a book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of his principles is first seek to understand.
Hmm.
So to me, the amazing gift and the first thing to do with animal communication is to seek to understand somebody else's perspective. So for me, the first question I would recommend that
Hmm.
anybody ask an animal in any context is, who are you?
Hmm.
How are you? What's it like to be you? And then you're building that common ground of understanding where you can now expand and have, other kinds of questions, but you don't know who that bird is. You don't know who that fish is.
Hmm.
So who are you? That would be the first question I would recommend people ask an animal.
That's a beautiful one. Yeah. And what do you think would change if animal communication would be integrated in educational system?
Ah, I would love to see that. I would love that so much. I think that in order to have true intuitive communication with an animal, you need to be grounded and centered and calm inside of yourself. So, if that's the first thing that they teach in the educational system, is this is how you calm your nervous system, this is how you get in touch with who you are first and make peace with that.
Mhm.
And then you reach out and then you communicate with animals, and you're able to hold this state. I think that humanity and society would change drastically. I think we would have, so much less conflict in the world because like we were talking about the big patterns down to the smaller, well, it goes the other way as well, right? So if I have conflict in me, I'm mad at myself for, I don't know, whatever, something I did or said, or I've been traumatized and now I feel unworthy and I have to prove my worth and I have to then dominate other people and make them say how great I am or prove to the world in some way of achieving something. That's a conflict that I bring wherever I go because that conflict is within me as an individual. But then it goes into my family, right? So that conflict goes into my family. And then we bring that conflict to our community, right? Like how we interact when we go to the store or the post office or when we vote. We vote for things that match our our conflict inside of us. We want to control things because we feel out of control. And then that just keeps going to every level
Hmm.
of humanity. But if we had animal communication in our educational system and kids learned how to find that still, quiet, wholesome, pure, authentic center inside of themselves, and they knew they could always go there, then how they're going to grow up in such a less conflicted way with so much less to prove, so much less conflict with other people, the whole world is going to change. And that's part of why, like, I do it, I teach adults, but it's kind of a maybe we'll meet in the middle. Maybe there'll be somebody whose mission is really to teach children
Children.
this
Yeah,
so that a next generation grows up. But in the meantime, I like teaching adults. And so
absolutely.
I start with that. And that's why I want to see 1 million animal communicators in the world, because
Oh,
the ripple effect of that is that we're bringing peace, we're bringing connection, we're bringing harmony, bringing understanding
hmm.
to who we are, which goes everywhere that we go, but it also brings it to the world by sharing the messages and sharing the techniques and sharing the skills. All of it starts to bring peace. It starts with one person finding that peace within them, that calm, and it can grow from there. But right
Yes.
now it's one person at a time.
Yeah, Winter was my animal communication teacher. She said once that one person can, on the unconscious level, um, how you call it, ripple another 300 people can somehow,
Yeah.
mm, I can't find the word. Never mind, but one person can allow 300 other people to do the same or learn the same thing that the one person did. So one person that can learn animal communication can allow another 300 people to learn animal communication or to find peace. They not
Yeah.
necessarily need to learn animal communication, but to find who they are and find the inner peace.
Because when you change inside of you, you bring that to every interaction, and that affects every person that you interact with.
Yeah.
And you give people permission to be themselves. When you're authentically who you are, you give other people permission to be authentically who they are. And that ripple effect it's beautiful. It's totally beautiful. And, I believe that intuitive animal communication is our birthright. We've just forgotten how to access it. And we've grown into a species that's very distracted, that's very imbalanced in our brains and how we use our brains. We don't use all of our brains in the same way that maybe we used to thousands of years ago. But all of the hardware is still there, and we can all relearn how to use that hardware.
Yeah.
And so this is so much more accessible than people realize. A year or two of practice, and
Mm.
you're really good at this. And then you're out there and you're changing the world because you've changed.
Yes. Yes. Recently, it feels like animals and natures are interacting with us human more directly and often very in a very specific way in about very specific things. And I don't mean to entertain us, but to help us to maintain the balance, to warn us, to bring messages that we may not want to hear. How do you perceive this shift?
Oh, wow. So I think that as as humans grow and expand and change the landscape and change the waterscape and change the airscape, there's gonna be more and more interactions. And I'm really curious about, what specific examples you're thinking of for saying this. But, to me, there's a lot. I think of the orcas and the Mediterranean, first off, when you say that and how they're attacking boats. Like,
Mhm.
whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Right? Um, and and so the messages are all around us. It's kind of like if we don't get the message the first time, it comes back stronger. So,
Yes.
in a lot of ways, probably, yeah, the messages are getting stronger and more dramatic and harder to dismiss or ignore or whatever, because our planet is just racing towards um, implosion because of humans. And
Yes.
so everybody, the birds, the trees, the water, the earth, the every element of life on planet Earth is being affected. And so whether you look at it as a spiritual wake-up call or just a simple chemistry wake-up call, when things are out of balance chemically,
Yes.
there's differences in how that chemical responds and reacts to the environment and to other things. And so, again, like I really look at things at every level, the individual, the community, and within the individual, we can look at the biology, we can look at the chemistry, we can look at the systems, we can look at the cells, but we could do that, in and out, big and small. And so I think that in a lot of ways, the the way that we're perceiving animals right now and their behavior and our interactions with them, because there's some amazing, beautiful interactions happening right now that are just stunning, that so many more people are seeing the value of and seeing the truth of that, you know, we can interact with animals in an incredibly positive way, and we haven't historically. I visited the gray whales in Mexico a couple of years ago, and gray whales have been hunted for hundreds of years, almost to extinction. And and yet the amazing thing about these gray whales is they're so forgiving. They're still reaching out to people. They're curious about us. They interact with us. They let us touch them. The energy of peace that is in the atmosphere around a gray whale is palpable to somebody who has no sense of energy or intuition or anything. That's why people go to see these animals. They're going to get back in touch with the truth of
Yeah.
who we are. I really want to go visit the gorillas in
Mhm.
Africa, the mountain gorillas. And I think that people go there for the same reason. Maybe this is like our, the animal lover pilgrimage, touching truth, touching, our spiritual, getting close to our spiritual teachers. But we go into nature because it's healing for us, because it feels good. And more we're becoming aware of that academically, scientifically, personally, spiritually, in so many ways. And all of the environment around us is reflecting to us how important it is, how valuable it is, how worth preserving nature and species diversity and all of that is. And I think what we pay attention to is a reflection of where we're at. So if we are, collectively seeing these beautiful interactions between humans and wild animals as like this is real and possible, that's like to me another paradigm shift of wow, what have we overlooked in our brain-centric way of being in the world? Maybe we're missing something. Maybe there's a lesson here for us. And I think that there's people on the edge who are living that and getting that and messengers for that. And then social media, one of the good things about it is it spreads stuff really quickly and really powerfully. And so I think social media is actually helping us understand that we have to connect more deeply, more personally, more collectively, more globally with nature in order to heal ourselves and to heal the planet and to have any chance of having a future here.
Yeah, and maybe learn to do it new way with
Yeah,
animals.
yeah.
Uh, we are coming to the end of our conversation because time is up, and I have one last question. As an animal ambassador, if you could speak on behalf of animals, if they could make the decision about the land and nature, what would be the first thing they would change?
Wow. So there are really, really cool. There are people in Canada
Mhm.
who are actually in the conservation arena who are communicating with animals through animal communicators to ask them the specific question about specific legislation. So I love that you're asking this, and I just want to share that this is something that's in action right now in
Mhm.
Canada, where they are having that conversation with all the stakeholders, including the animals. So it's not, kind of a theoretical question, it's a very
Mhm.
practical question. I think that if we asked, all the different animals, it would be and actually, I've had so many different species of animals I've asked
Mhm.
this question to, who say, take care of the planet,
Mhm.
take care of yourself better so that you're not inflicting your conflict on your environment. But I think that animals would want us to understand that we are part of nature, not separate from it. And I think the mindset that we're somehow separate from nature, and the old paradigm of man has dominion over animals and nature was so destructive. So I think animals would want us to understand that we're part of nature, that we can cooperate for mutual benefits. It's not a zero-sum game where somebody loses and somebody wins anymore. It never was. That was a
Cooperation.
mistake that we made. Um, and we can do this together. And let's partner together. I haven't asked them, but I think that's what they would
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
Include us in the conversation and we can help you.
yeah. I believe that too because nature always cooperate.
Nature, by its very nature,
Yeah.
is collaborative, it's
Yes.
interactive, right?
Yes.
That's ecology. It's like it's all interaction. We're all connected. Some of
Yeah.
us just don't realize it.
Yeah. Cara, thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Sharka. It's been such a joy to meet you and to communicate with you, to talk with you. And I wish you all the best with this new series. I'm so honored to be your first guest. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I thank you and wish you all the best. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Bye.